March 8, 2014. A Boeing 777 carrying 239 souls takes off into the night sky over Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. It was a routine journey, a flight that had taken place countless times before. Families with children, business travelers, students heading home, none of them knowing they were about to become part of one of the greatest mysteries in modern aviation. Just 40 minutes later, as the plane crossed the South China Sea, it simply vanished. No mayday call, no distress signal, no wreckage on the water. An aircraft the size of a skyscraper disappearing into thin air. How does a plane with hundreds of passengers and the most advanced tracking technology in the world just cease to exist?
Echoes of the past.
To understand the chilling weight of this story, you need to picture the atmosphere of the time. In 2014, commercial flight was seen as one of the safest ways to travel. Boeing's 777 model was a workhorse of the skies, celebrated for its reliability. Malaysia Airlines had flown this route for years, and nothing about Flight 370 seemed unusual. The night was calm. Weather conditions were clear. The passengers came from over a dozen nations, the majority from China and Malaysia. Among them were families with toddlers, students heading back after school breaks, and even a group of artists on their way to an exhibition in Beijing. The crew was experienced, led by Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 53-year-old veteran with more than 18,000 flight hours. His co-pilot, Farrokh Hamid, was only 27, but had already earned his place in the cockpit of the 777. For the passengers, this was supposed to be an ordinary red-eye flight. They would board, doze off, and wake up in Beijing. Instead, they entered history. The plane left the runway at 12:41 a.m. By 1:19 a.m., as the aircraft crossed into Vietnamese airspace, a final, calm transmission came from the cockpit. It was simple, almost casual. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Minutes later, as the plane reached cruising altitude, its transponder, the device that communicates with air traffic control, stopped transmitting. At first, it seemed like a technical glitch. Planes lose signals occasionally. Controllers expected the blip to reappear. But it didn't. Instead, radar later revealed something strange. The plane made a sharp turn west, crossing back over Malaysia and heading toward the Indian Ocean. This wasn't a drifting aircraft. The turns were controlled, deliberate, as though someone at the helm knew exactly what they were doing. Civilian radar soon lost the plane entirely. For nearly 7 hours, Flight 370 remained in the air, invisible to most of the world. Meanwhile, families in Beijing waited at the airport, watching the arrivals board. The minutes turned to hours. The status of the flight changed to delayed, then lost. Confusion turned to dread. At 7:24 a.m., Malaysia Airlines made the announcement. The flight was missing. The world was stunned. How could a massive airliner vanish in the age of satellites, global surveillance, and radar networks? And yet it had. As investigators scrambled, more unsettling details emerged. Military radar suggested the plane flew across the Malaysian peninsula, then out toward the vast southern Indian Ocean. No contact, no explanation, no debris, just silence. Search planes scoured the seas where it was last seen. Ships from multiple nations joined in, but nothing was found. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The ocean remained empty, as though it had swallowed the truth whole. The disappearance of MH370 sparked one of the largest and most expensive search operations in history. More than 26 countries joined in, covering over 7 million square kilometers of ocean. Satellites recalculated signals, search zones shifted again and again, and still, nothing surfaced. Families camped out in hotels near airports, clinging to hope. Some refused to believe the plane was gone. They demanded answers, holding vigils, press conferences, and at times confronting officials they believed were hiding the truth. The Malaysian government's handling of the crisis drew criticism worldwide. Initial reports were conflicting. Timelines were changed. Information seemed to drip out slowly, fueling suspicion of a cover-up. Every inconsistency only deepened the mystery. Finally, more than a year later, in July 2015, debris washed ashore on Reunion Island, off the coast of Africa. It was confirmed to be part of MH370's wing. Over the following years, other fragments surfaced across the Indian Ocean, on beaches in Madagascar, Tanzania, and Mauritius. But still, the main wreckage, the black boxes, and the bodies of the 239 people on board have never been found. The families remain caught between grief and uncertainty. For them, the lack of closure is torture. Without wreckage, without clear evidence, their loved ones remain trapped in a limbo between hope and despair. With so little concrete evidence, theories have flourished. Some seem plausible, others border on the unbelievable. One theory is catastrophic mechanical failure. Perhaps a sudden fire or electrical problem disabled communications and filled the cabin with smoke. The crew, overwhelmed, could not respond, and the plane flew on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. But critics argue this doesn't explain the deliberate course changes. Another theory points to pilot suicide. Captain Zahari, some suggest, may have intentionally diverted the plane. Investigators found that he had plotted a similar route on his home flight simulator, one that ended in the southern Indian Ocean. His personal life was said to be troubled, but supporters insist he was a dedicated pilot with no reason to take 238 others with him. Then there's the possibility of hijacking. 2 passengers boarded with stolen passports, raising suspicions, but they were later identified as asylum seekers, with no ties to terrorism. Still, could there have been others on board with darker motives? A darker theory suggests a government or military cover-up. Some point to the plane's strange detour near sensitive airspace, or the delayed release of radar data. Could it have been accidentally shot down, with authorities hiding the truth? Similar incidents have occurred in history, civilian planes mistaken for threats. Others go further. Some claim the plane was taken to the U.S. military base at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Others whisper about new military technology, even extraterrestrial intervention. While most of these are speculative, the lack of solid evidence leaves them lingering in the public imagination. What makes the case so haunting is that every theory has holes. Each answer creates new questions. And until the black boxes are found, the silence of MH370 continues to echo louder than the facts. More than a decade has passed since that night. The search has been suspended, though private companies and grieving families continue to push for answers. MH370 has become more than a tragedy. It's a symbol of how, even in an age of satellites and instant communication, a plane can still vanish as though it were never there. 239 lives were lost, and yet their final moments remain unseen, unheard, unknown. For their families, the ocean is both a grave and a question mark. How does a modern jetliner, watched by radars and tracked by satellites, simply disappear? Was it human error, a deliberate act, or something stranger than we dare to imagine? Until the day the ocean gives up its secret, the disappearance of Flight MH370 will remain one of the most chilling mysteries of our time.